There's no shortage of strange stories coming from outer space. For example, an astronaut claiming to have heard music on the moon, and weird space fireflies floating outside the spaceship. So we take a look at 5 more leaks that NASA didn't want us to know about. Number 5. Space fireflies. In 1962, while part of the Mercury Atlas 6 mission, John Glenn became the first American astronaut to orbit the planet. This amazing accomplishment has been hijacked by UFO enthusiasts. The reason? Space fireflies. While flying in the Friendship 7 capsule over Australia, Glenn reported something strange floating outside the window. He said, quote, "I'm in a big mass of some very small particles that are brilliantly lit up, like they're luminescent. They look like little stars," end quote. These fireflies, as he called them, reportedly took off when he tapped on the window. The initial thought at Mission Control was that this was part of the heat shield, but luckily that didn't turn out to be true. At the time of Glenn's report, the mission wasn't broadcasting live, but word did get out, and hence the Firefly story has remained something of an urban legend. Number 4. Music on the Moon. Astronaut Eugene Cernan piloted the Apollo 10 space capsule around the dark side of the moon. In the process, he started hearing music. In communications with NASA Mission Control, he actually said, "You hear that?" And it turns out, they did. In 2008, the transcripts of the mission were released, and the description that Cernan gave to Mission Control was a weird whistling sound that was similar to, quote, outer space type music. And while NASA has made a habit of trying to explain away these strange occurrences, this same thing happened again on the Apollo 11 mission to astronaut Michael Collins. He wrote in his 1974 book, Carrying the Fire, that he also heard space music while orbiting the moon. NASA's official explanation, quote, interference between the LMs and the command module's VHS radios, end quote. Number 3. Aldrin gets buzzed. Neil Armstrong is credited with being the first man to walk on the moon, but it was Buzz Aldrin who actually hoisted the first drink. While this may initially seem very irresponsible, there is a perfectly good explanation. Aldrin was a devout Presbyterian and wanted to perform communion on the moon. After clearing it with his pastor, and of course NASA, he secured some bread and wine in the fanny pack of his spacesuit. NASA did require him to do this during a break in radio broadcasts of the mission because there had been complaints after a portion of Genesis was read during the Apollo 8 mission. On a side note, yes, there is just enough gravity on the moon to drink from a cup. Number 2. Beer Can UFO. When astronaut James McDivitt first spied a UFO outside a capsule window in 1965's Gemini 4 mission, he didn't even bother to wake up his fellow astronaut Ed White. Instead, he watched it close for 30 seconds and took some pictures, then described it as a, quote, beer can with a pencil sticking out of the middle. Upon the mission's return to Earth, NASA released a picture of what McDivitt claimed was the UFO. The picture they released ended up being the wrong picture, and the real picture McDivitt snapped mysteriously disappeared. Years later, the original photos did resurface, and even McDivitt ultimately stated that he thought it was a reflection of capsule bolts. Number 1. Warp Factor 10. It's no secret that many scientific advancements began in somebody's imagination in a science fiction story. Fuel-free propulsion is one of those advancements. It defies the laws of physics, and it really shouldn't work. Yet at NASA, they're testing something called the EM drive system, and they apparently never got that memo. The science community was stunned last year when NASA documents were leaked, and according to these documents, the EM drive continues to generate thrust without fuel or propellants, defying all known physics. How does it work? Well, if we could describe that in a YouTube video, we might as well be working for NASA. But the basics go something like this. They bounce microwave photons back and forth inside a cone-shaped closed metal cavity. This makes it so the pointy end of the EM drive generates enough thrust to propel the drive in the opposite direction. Yeah, we figured it wouldn't make much sense to you either. But whether it makes sense or not, the potential is there. And when we say potential, We're talking about the type of potential that could get us traveling to Mars within a mere 70 days.